Good afternoon, everyone. We'll let everybody join, give it maybe another minute or so, and we'll get going. Okay, well, let's go ahead and get going. Hello, everyone. My name is Suzanne Carowin. I'm the Vice President of Marketing Communications here at NAIFA, and I am joined today with Glenn Crawford. I'll let him do his own honors in just a second. But I first want to start by apologizing because we were supposed to have a full panel today, but our career agents are doing what career agents do best, and they're serving their clients. So I'll just give a little shout out to Vanessa Buckland, who is who works through New York Life. Vanessa's out in Montana. She called me and said, I'm so sorry I cannot do this, but one of my clients is 200 miles away and her client has died and needs to deliver a death benefit check. So she needed to go take care of that client. And then Paul Shaka, who's also a New York Life guy, also just called and said, I have a client crisis that I cannot avoid. I'm so sorry. So on behalf of that, I will say I apologize. We'll bring them back at a different time. But the good news is that gives us more time with Glenn Crawford. And Glenn is out in California. So Glenn, do you want to go ahead and do your own introduction?
Yeah, sure. I just hear a car going by, so I hope there's not too much noise. I didn't want to plug in my earphones. Thank you so much for having me today, Suzanne, and I hope I'm up to the task to be, I guess, keynote, if you would. And as we mentioned before, I played a little college sports. I played football at Arizona State University. I coached for youth sports for many years. Ran businesses, mentored people. So I'm used to calling the audible when it comes to it. So I'm excited. But yes, I'm Glenn Crawford. I'm out here in La Crescenta, California. I'm about 10 minutes from the Rose Bowl, north of the Rose Bowl. So on January 1st, other than last year, and you see the beautiful weather out here in Southern California, that's about where I'm at. I'm with Signature Resources. I consider myself right along with my athleticism. I learned that my best self is my natural self, just to be myself in business. And that, brings an athletic mentality and a coach mentality. So I am a coach for your financial well-being. I am a financial fiduciary. I hold a Series 65 license. Of course, my insurance, life and health licenses. And as well, I hold a CDFA. I'm a certified divorce financial analyst. I have a few areas of specialty. One is helping people understand the unique aspects of dissolving their marital enterprise when it comes to divorce, and hugely needed marketplace. There's only 5,000 of us in the country. I've found that, when I was divorced myself after 24 years, and even though I have a deep understanding of the world of financial instruments, I didn't understand the first thing when it comes to asset division and divorce. So lawyers certainly don't understand it. Typically they don't have a high financial acumen. I wouldn't say universally, but typically. And, many times people are paying them for areas that they're not trained in. Moreover, they don't communicate in a way that's conducive to the participants understanding what they're negotiating. So that's a big part of my business. I also work with people in retirement income planning. I like to say I look at the most efficient way to fuel your money machine when it comes time to turn your assets into income. As well, I have a fair amount of business working with high net worth individuals, de-risk their taxable estate legally. And finally, working with highly compensated executives with after-tax investment programs that help them diminish, delay, reduce, defer, or eliminate their taxable income. So that's that's a mouthful there, but it keeps me really busy.
And look who just showed up. So Paul, we're so happy you were able to take care of things.
I know. Sorry about that. My partner was able to jump in there and take care of that. So
what a NAIFA member. What a NAIFA thing to do. Good citizen you are. Perfect time. So we're just doing introductions. So Paul Shaka, thank you so much for being able to join us and
thanks for having me.
Hand that off to a good partner. Do you want to just talk a little bit about, just introduce yourself, your practice, etc.?
Yeah, certainly. So I began my career here at New York Life. That's the parent company here. Pinnacle Strategies is my DBA. After a career on Wall Street, I worked on Wall Street for about 12 years. I was an equity trader there, got knocked out of there in 2008, and ended up in our business here. And I'm to be quite honest, you know, I always say, although I miss that somewhat, I wish it happened 20 years earlier, because if I knew then what I know now, you know, this to me is the greatest business that I can be involved in. So our practice is, it's an estate planning, wealth management practice. We deal with primarily business owners and high net worth individuals, you know, minimizing taxable estates, transferring wealth, all with tax efficiency in mind, you know, providing legacies for families, you know, and it's funny because as a trader, it was very cold, right? It was transactional. It was you know, you did your trade and you moved on to the next one. Here, I've never felt more impactful, you know, especially delivering a death claim. That to me is where the rubber meets the road. And, you know, I feel like what we do is so impactful. And Glenn, I'm sure you'd agree with that. Yeah, so I've been here about 14 years now, and our practice has expanded. We have, there's 4 of us now in the practice, and we're continuing to expand. One of my partners is in Florida. We have another one in Connecticut, and 2 of us here. So, you know, things are great. I'm excited to be working with NAIFA, and of course, you know, being on this panel today. I appreciate it.
Well, wonderful. So let's go ahead and set the stage for today's topic. So let's give a little bit of backstory and a little background. So earlier this year, NAIFA was invited by LIMRA, spearheading this initiative called Help Protect Our Families. And there's a number of trade associations who are involved as well. But one of the things that we said we would do as NAIFA is we would go ahead and put together a panel, and we've done many different webinars on different topics. But at the end of the day, we're trying to really do 2 things. We're trying to talk about and expand the conversation amongst financial advisors about how do we get more people the right level of insurance, so those who are underinsured, and secondly, how do we get people that are uninsured insured? And so what we want to do today is really talk to 2 career agents, right? Very seasoned, very esteemed gentlemen, and talk about their perspective on why we're struggling with this, right? We know that we're struggling in the United States. We only have 46% of people with the right life insurance coverage, et cetera. So we want to really kind of delve into this and talk about, maybe debunk some myths and get their perspective. So it's just going to be a nice conversation and a nice dialogue to start with. So I think as we get going on this, I think one of the goals there, right, is to also, as we're talking through, I think it would be good if you can kind of also any practical tips, right? Practical ideas or how you get the conversation started, right? So any of those kind of good take home nuggets, et cetera, or any stories that you want to share. Of course, NAIFA members are the best storytellers in the industry, but I think it would be good to go ahead and pepper your comments with any of those things. So I guess to start off with, let's just nail that question to start with, right? Let's start with you, Paul. Why do we not have more life insurance coverage in the United States?
I think part of the reason is that it's easier to do nothing than it is to do something. And I think that oftentimes, especially from some of our peers in the business, not in the insurance business, but brokers, for example, or other types of advisors, you know, hey, you don't need life insurance. You can do this. You can do this. We always have these alternatives. And I think sometimes when we're faced with transactional and product pushing competition, oftentimes they're selling something and portraying something as easier and cheaper, but they're not taking a holistic approach to this, right? And I think that when you take a holistic approach, when you look at the big picture, when you point out some of the calamities that can occur, and oftentimes I'll simply just ask, you know, somebody, you know, what is your plan for this? Or what is your plan for this? A long-term care event, for example, you know, a death of an earner in the household. What is your plan? Because invariably, the plan will not be sufficient, right? Their plan and I tell them that you guys have a plan already. You have one already. It's either you're going to control the outcome or you're not, right? And I think this is about control. Financial planning in its truest sense is about controlling the outcome.
Like that. Glenn, what about you?
That's great stuff, Paul. And, it just feeds right in. I mentioned I have athletic background. First off, I also want to commend all of the attendees, today, because it demonstrates that they're all in and that they're all willing to, continue to grow and learn and expand their knowledge, and their skill set in the practice. I'm actually relatively new to the industry. I started in the financial wellness industry at the tender young age of 57. I would have been Paul's client before. I was a business entrepreneur doing about $65 million, 20 offices around the country. And I was like a lot of other business entrepreneurs. I'm worried about growing the business and the next deal. I wasn't thinking about the purpose of the business, which is at some point, I got to turn that business into income or pass it on. How do I keep more money in my pocket? What things can I do besides getting the next deal to keep more money in my pocket? And I call that the net thinking. And I believe you should employ net thinking in all aspects of your life, i.e. what's the net result to me? Net of fees, net of taxes, net of operating costs. What's the net to me, whether it's financial, business, or personal? I believe, the question, why is there such a huge coverage gap, is that there's a tremendous amount of lack of education. People, Paul raised a great point, doing nothing, what happens in the absence of doing nothing? You have a plan. Even if your plan is nothing, you have a plan. And planning, again, back to my athleticism, planning is so important. I don't know about other sports, but I know in football that the coaches will go there and they will stay there all night. They'll stay till wee hours in the morning to plan because they believe that planning is important. They believe in absence of a plan, you're leaving things to chance. You're flying by the seat of your pants. They're planning because they want to find an area of opportunity to take advantage of or an area of deficiency that needs to be addressed. And it's simply that. I believe the biggest skill that we can have as advisors is, because when you tell someone you're an advisor or whatever, wealth asset manager or whatever it is, immediately those shields go up. The skill is being able to get people to have an objective conversation with me and see if we have an area of an opportunity or area of deficiency. So I believe on the consumer side, there's a lack of education. There's a lack of time. Sometimes they think it's too complex. It's too overwhelming. There's a tremendous amount of distrust. I believe that there's many advisors unwilling to really, drive, those conversations, to have those tough conversations with people about, hey, what are we doing here? And what happens if we don't take time to, to look at our future plans? So a lot of people are afraid to walk people through things like, what's the impact of not being protected, as Paul said, or, I'm simply tired. I don't know. I'm sure you guys have seen it. I see people on the street here in LA with signs. Please donate money so I can bury my mom. I see on the internet, GoFundMe so I can bury, my uncle or my wife or whatever. And that should never happen.
Yeah.
It absolutely should never happen. So I think there's a tremendous amount of, last point I'll make, there's two kinds of errors that my coaches and my mentors and my bosses said you can make. There's errors in omission and errors in commission. And I never had a coach or a boss or a mentor that would rather me make an error in omission than an error in commission. In other words, do something, be a participant, don't be a spectator.
Yeah, and one of our other members, Delvin Joyce, right, will always say, and I don't know if he got it from his football career or this is really, he coined it, but he'll say, you don't practice so you get it right. You practice so you can't get it wrong, right? So you have to have all that prep time and all those plans and contingency plans to understand what you're doing. And I think it's important also that I think so. And I want to kind of ask a different question and ask you when you guys come into your client's life, right? So kind of how do you acquire clients? Because I think another piece of the equation on why don't we have more Americans insured is one, it's not required. right? Life insurance is not required. Let's say disability insurance is per se not required. Long-term care insurance is maybe not required, but car insurance is, right? So somehow we understand and grasp car insurance. Hopefully we all have that. But I think the other piece is when you back up, it's when do you enter into that person's life, right? And I think, Glenn, you made an excellent point. If we overlap about being an entrepreneur and you're worried about the next, you're worried about cash flow, right? You're worried about payroll, you're worried about all these pieces. You're not thinking about, at some point you got to the maturity to say, I have to think of my own, my own profession, my own business, my own family as an entity unto itself that has its own needs and wants, right? And that's a level of maturity that you got to at some point. But how do you get from, and I'm interested in where you meet your clients, where they are, how do they come into your world? How do you get there where you can move the needle to say, listen, this isn't a nice to have for a one-day scenario. This is something you need from the get-go, right? And so understanding that, the eighth wonder of the world, compound interest of money, right? So, and understanding that, how do you come into, how do your clients come to you? And are they in a point where they're either in at some sort of, as you said, calamity or crisis, or an opportunity where they're ready to have the conversation, but they're already kind of arriving at your doorstep, ready to talk about these types of issues? Paul, I'll take that one first. You want to comment on that?
Yeah, certainly. So I think, well, my clients principally today come from referrals. That's not how it started, though. When I first came into the business, it was the height of the Great Recession in 2008 and 9. That's my formative years in this business. That's where I built my business. So it was an uphill climb, but it was interesting because I really used it as an advantage. It helped me illustrate and illuminate calamities, right? What happens if? Well, this is one of those ifs. This is an if. This is something that's happening. So for example, somebody loses their job and God forbid they pass away shortly thereafter. Not only did the income stream stop and they're probably in arrears because they've been out of work for a while, now they've passed away and now there's nothing. Now what? And to Glenn's point, it's funny, one of the managing partners here he would always say, my goal is to put GoFundMe out of business. Because it bothers him to no end that GoFundMe is even, part of people's plan. And it unfortunately is. But, these days the business and the clients principally come from referrals. When you're working within a business, for example, a small business, maybe a partnership or something like that along those lines, you typically have all, the executive suite. But then you also have the rank and file employees, right? So to me, it's a wonderful way for us to really gain exposure and really educate. And to Glenn's point, it's about education. That's our job. I feel like if I can teach somebody and again, illuminate some of the pitfalls in life, some of the things they may face, hopefully won't, but may face, then that's how I've done my job at that point. And I believe I'll have better clients who will refer me to people if they understand what I've done.
Teach a man to fish, right? Teach a man to fish. Right. So because you've given them some knowledge, then you're saying your current clients are passing it on and saying, hey, you know who you need. You need also to talk. Yeah.
And we're very lucky to have clients who we have, the grandparents, we've got the parents, and then the kids are next. And it goes from there. And that to me is the ultimate compliment, that they would entrust, their family's well-being in your hands. It's a humbling thing because, this is not about selling something to them and then not talking to them, ever again. This is about me every year, by the way, when I do my annual reviews, reaffirming our plan, reaffirming what I've done and what I suggested we do, and then adjusting as we go. To me, that's planning, right? It's not about any specific product or any specific company, by the way. I'm not married to any, for example, in the life insurance world, I'm not married to any company's product. There are different tools in my tool belt. That's how I look at it. And depending on the issue, that's the tool I'll pull out.
So Glenn, what about you? When your clients are coming into your life, are they seeking you out? You're probably at this point too, you've got a great referral network, et cetera. But how do you plug in there so you can, again, start to talk about this and talk about the insurance side of it, the underinsured, et cetera?
Well, yeah, some of them are coming through referral. I've always been a guy. I'm a son of an Army colonel. I moved all over the country. I can walk in any room and and I'm going to meet 80% of the people, in that room, or people are going to come to me. I've just been, lucky that way, my whole life, being able to go into new situations and just, being able to swim with everyone else. You guys both make good points. Number one, I mentioned I played football in college. I got a degree in business. I went to work for corporate America straight off the campus. My dad, the colonel, was happy. I got a scholarship to college, and I was working 2 weeks out of college after busting up my knee and not being the best wide receiver you've ever seen that was put on the earth. And that's what I believe I was put on the earth to do. It didn't happen, but they don't teach you a thing about financial wellness in school. They don't teach you one thing. They don't teach you how to balance a checkbook. They don't. Now, I did take insurance in college, and believe it or not, I still had stuff in my memory bank about insurance. Bought my first policy on myself at 26, but didn't get into the financial wellness business to 57. But in general, there's no place that people go to learn about financial wellness. That's why the work we do is so sorely needed. You can never be ashamed or hesitant about talking to someone about the work that you do. Paul said some things that are very appropriate as well, as not being married to one company and one product. I'm a Mass Mutual career agent, and I'm also work with a boutique registered investment advisor, as well. But my objective when I talk with people, let's just have an objective conversation. I think too many professionals on our side, we get we're too locked into what do I need to fix? What's the hole that I need to fix? Where can I plug that, with some solution that I have, rather than taking a step back, taking a holistic view, looking at the whole game plan, because everything is interrelated. So my clients come to me from a bunch of different places. I serve on 4 nonprofits. I'm the president of NAFA, LA right now, serving at that, but I serve on 3 other socially responsible nonprofits. And I had a whole career in IT when I had that big company. I got a lot of people there, and I have a whole host of people from my alma mater. I served on the alumni at large, there, and as well as the business college there. I coached, 10 years year round here in Southern California. I have hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of families that I've worked with. So I have no shortage. And then I'm still, although the past, year and a quarter I haven't been out, but generally I might be out once a week or twice a week at, some event. I do get a fair amount of referrals, but I don't rely on that. And one of the ways I engage with people is I try and give them the mindset that, hey, are you aware that you are the president, the CEO, and the trustee of the bank of you? Just as you said earlier, people are running their business enterprise and they're running their home enterprise. They're running a balance sheet. Even if they go to Northrop for 30 years, they're running a balance sheet. You are the president, the trustee, and the CEO of the bank of you. I would submit that it probably requires a little tender care and feeding. You don't have to be a zealot. It's not overly complex. And I try and make people feel comfortable too. Hey, talk to me or talk to someone like me, but talk to somebody, don't leave this to chance. Don't fly by the seat of your pants on that. So, I agree with all that's said. I mean, and I love what NAFA is doing with our customer or consumer facing, website where people can go to and get information. And, I love what we're doing about, helping to make anyone who wears this, this badge here, this button, that we've pledged to operate at a high standard in your best interest, not because the industry tells us that it needs to be suitable or we need to be a fiduciary. We will act in your best interest, and that's the reason we're here. And so by doing good for others, you will do well.
Yeah, and I think for viewers on the phone or who are listening who are not aware, the consumer site for NAIFA is financialsecurity.org. And what we're trying to do is make sure that people go to a NAIFA advisor, right? So just like you wouldn't go to a doctor who's not part of the American Medical Association, you shouldn't go to just any advisor. You should go to one who's ascribed to a code of ethics and puts that client's best interest first. To Paul's point, regardless of product, et cetera, it's putting that client's best interest first. And that's what we're all about. I do have a question that came in from one of our viewers. This person, Robert, thank you, Robert, for your question. If anybody else has a question, please feel free to use the chat. He says that he struggles because he finds that most people don't really understand the amount of insurance necessary for the business and family, like they underestimate it. And they also, to your point, are trying to go cheap. They're getting term insurance, et cetera, and they're not really understanding the coverage they need between, let's say, 60 and 70, and things change along the life, and they haven't accounted for that. So can you respond, maybe start back to you, Glenn. What do you do in that scenario? One, do you find that in your clients in this underinsured piece? And then two, what kinds of things do you do, tools or conversation starters to get them to really understand and teach them about the amount of coverage you need?
There is so much, prevalent misunderstanding and misconceptions about insurance. Insurance, seems like a dirty word, to most people. And then they hear some of the prognosticators say buy term and invest the rest, or you shouldn't buy insurance, or insurance, is too high, too costly. There's just so much, misunderstanding, that people have connotations about insurance. And so I think we have to be emboldened. We have to, be confident and learn, the values, of insurance, that it's pretty much bulletproof in economic times, no matter the president, no matter what's going on in, in the world, that it's tax deferred and it's tax, preferential, and it's not, associated, depending on which kind you get, necessarily with the stock market. And it's one of the ways that it's probably created, more wealth than just about anything, but it has certainly preserved wealth. And that's why I got in the business. I became enamored with the idea of how do you acquire wealth, how do you preserve wealth, and how do you transfer wealth? And insurance is a key component in that. How about this? Here's a football analogy. Here's a sports analogy, okay? People understand offense. Offense is the first half of your life when you spend acquiring things. You have 401ks and you have investment accounts and you have real estate and you may have a business and you may have alternative products. You're acquiring things. When it comes to time for the second half of your life, when you have to turn your assets into income, just having a collection of assets in and of itself is not a healthy retirement income plan. And it's not all about offense. By the way, I always engage with people, like this. I say, if I know they like football or whatever sport they like, I said, hey, you like the Green Bay Packers. Has there ever been a Green Bay Packer team in the history of Green Bay Packer teams worth a darn that didn't have some modicum of a stout defense? And no one can tell me that they all have, right? And so if the tenets of offense and defense and that kind of balance works in all the great football teams that you've ever known, does it make sense to examine some of those principles when it comes to the biggest game plan of your life, your financial well-being game plan, the one you have to get right, the one you only get one chance for? So when you're solving and I've heard different things, but when you're solving the formula of how much insurance should I have, well, that's a great place to start. They say, hey, I have insurance. I have term insurance. I have it through work. Okay, great. How much do you have? And hey, how did you determine how much you should have? And what is the purpose for it? Is it to replace your income? Oh, by the way, you mentioned car insurance earlier. Let's say that you're going to make $3 million. I came to your house and I plopped down an ATM machine. Suzanne, here's your ATM machine, Suzanne. It's going to kick out $3 million over the next 20 years. I can go, would you like to, maybe for 4%, guarantee that if anything happens to that money machine, it's still going to kick out $3 million? You want that extra coverage or not? Then we get hit up all the time for things that we buy, where they give you an extended warranty. Yep. But I can tell you what, if you're going to insure your car and you're going to insure your health, is your financial health and wellness and the impact of that for your family equally as important to those things? Why wouldn't you do that? So the answer to the question of how much do you need, after they tell you, oh, well, I've got 3 times my salary, so I've got, $300K, and, they can, almost pay off the house with that, but we're forgetting that, they were counting on you earning 100K for the next 20 years. So here's my formula for calculating how much your insurance you need. It should be 20 times your salary, basically, or for every 50K of income you want to, if it's to replace income, there are other areas again that Paul talks about. If we're talking about mitigating taxes for high net worth people, that's a different thing. But if we're talking about replacing your income, for every 50K of income you need, I need $1 million of insurance. Why? Because I'm fairly confident that between a myriad of very low risk and no risk vehicles that I can produce 5% if I had $1 million, I was managing it for someone. So for every $1 million, I can stroke a check for 50K, and I can do that every year without invading the principal. So if you make 100K, you need $2 million worth of life insurance. Just take whatever it is they make, multiply it times 20, and that's how I come up with the number.
Paul, what about you? Are you finding that in your business clients? Are they underinsured? What are you doing about that?
Oh yeah, and it's so prevalent out there. It's scary. And Glenn hit on a couple of really important points. And frankly, the whole ATM machine in the basement, I use that exact analogy, because it's something people can get their arms around, right? But one of the things that I think that people don't understand is that they look at financial planning, they look at insurance as boring, right? It's typically boring, right? It's not fun. It's not as fun as what you don't see it on CNBC, you don't see it on Shark Tank. It's not those type of people, right? And that's what people I think are enamored by. They want to be involved in those things. But to Glenn's other point about football, can you name, we can all name the high, the best players on the Patriots or the Cowboys or the Packers, but we can't necessarily name the offensive linemen. But those are the guys, I'll tell you, without those guys, Brett Favre is not doing his thing, and neither is Aaron Rodgers or Tom Brady. I also use an analogy. It's sort of like, the Air Force. They've got all these great, sexy fighter planes and all this other stuff. They also have a whole bunch of big, ugly transport planes that are no less important, right? But they're not glamorous. They're not the Blue Angels or the Thunderbirds, but nothing flies without them. So I think that the biggest threat, and if you have to impart this to people, the biggest threat to people's financial well-being, frankly, in my mind, is the loss of what I call human capital. That's that ability for your biggest asset, you, or in Glenn's description, the ATM machine, which is you, to provide that income stream year after year after year after year, and keep up with the cost of living. And when I illustrate this, I also find it effective to take out a yellow pad and literally write down, for example, you make $100,000 a year. I'll write the $100,000. And I might turn to one of the spouses and say, well, I'm going to cross this out. So, okay, now you don't have this anymore. But the other numbers I put down might be the mortgage number and the other liabilities, for example, college tuition on, and I'll say this, okay, we're going to cross this one out. This isn't here. How are we paying this? And I make them do it. See, if I tell them how to see, and the reason I let them do that is because I know they can't do it. I know they can't, because, I know that their thought process is fundamentally flawed because of a lack of education about what we do. The over-reliance, the other thing is the over-reliance on employer benefits, right? People, I tell people that, there will be a day by your choice or otherwise where you're no longer working for XYZ company. And guess what? That insurance, I bet my right arm, is not portable. It's not going with you. Now paint a scenario where let's pretend you did work for this company for, I don't know, 15, 20 years and things were really good. And then for whatever reason, you're no longer working there, your insurance is not portable. You still have your mortgage and your responsibilities, but also guess what? You've also developed a health issue now. And perhaps you're uninsurable. Now what do we do? And I'll ask them for that plan, knowing they can't come up with the plan. There is no plan. And I think when you point these things out and let that self-realization kick in by pointing out logically, sometimes with numbers on a pad, or in Glenn's examples of those great analogies he came up with, people can get their arms around that. And frankly, I think sometimes we have to disturb them.
So let's talk about getting more of that education into the consumers, maybe through your clients. So Paul, in your case, when you're doing that type of work with the business owners, do you find that they are also then trickling that down to their employees, et cetera? Are you seeing that kind of spread, or do you feel like that's an area that we could figure out how we can do a better job with?
Yeah, great question. And the short answer is rarely, because once we walk out the door and take care of their planning, they pretty much have moved back, shifted their mindset to what they're doing. Doesn't mean they won't agree that it's important that the rank and file are educated, but that's where I ask for the opportunity to provide my services to them, to provide perhaps a seminar. Maybe I'll bring lunch in or something like that and do a little seminar, answer some questions. I'm not going to let them or rely on them to educate anybody, because I don't think that's reasonable. But I do think that if you can show value to the employer, much like I mentioned before about how you have as clients the grandparents, the parents, the kids, because that trust continues to go down the line of generations. It also moves from the boardroom to the rank and file.
Right.
I think for business owners who care.
I think you hit on an important point, and that can be a call to action for many of our members and our guests on this webinar today, is that one thing we can do is you're making the ask, the business owner, to say, why don't you provide me access and I will do this piece of it, because that's just a win-win, right? That you set them up to look good. They look like they're a caring employer, right? But you're also opening that up and people can understand, because I do think that largely, I mean, we know that for a fact, most people on first job, second job, they run through and they're signing away and they don't really understand the benefits. They don't really understand what any of that stuff is. And I think that's fair to say. There's a big gap there that we could also look at for people in the first kind of going into the, from going maybe possibly from, we could back it up, just sign in loans, in college. Right. But I think there's a lack of education in those steps. But I think you're making the ask to the business owner. That's a great conduit for us to help to spread that knowledge and get to more consumers, right? In a way that they're open, because now it's coming through their employer. There's a vested interest on both parties. So Glenn, kind of same question over to you. You're dealing with a lot of divorce. That opens up an opportunity, because divorce touches everyone in the full family, to get to, let's say again, children, extended people, partners, on and on and on. How do you handle that with educating, from that's a whole ripping up of all the assets and figuring those pieces out. How are you that's in a highly emotionally charged time. How are you kind of getting education through at the same point and seeing how you can kind of make it broader to stabilize?
Well, yeah, that is one way I engage, with, really the new financial normal, I call it, because, not only is my work in that area critical in helping people understand the value. So I say, if you're playing chess, you need to know how the pawn moves. You need to know how the rook moves and how the bishop moves. And you wouldn't sacrifice your bishop, unless you knew, what you were sacrificing it for. And it's okay to sacrifice it as long as you know the value of it. So that's the first piece. And then the second piece is helping people with creative scenarios in order to divide those assets, because no one ever takes the table and divides it down the middle, and the car and divides it down the middle, and every retirement account and divides it down the middle. How do we do it the most creative way so it's somewhat equitable and you can live with it? The importance of that is that it gives them strategies, negotiating strategies that they can provide directives to their lawyers, and the lawyers use the work that we do. So our work is backed up by data, and then the lawyers now has clear directives from the the participant, and they're not paying money back and forth, communicating and confusing emails and whatnot with their lawyer. How it runs into working with the extended family and the immediate family is one of the things that people always want to know. What they want to know is, how am I going to make sense of my life after this? Okay, how am I going to make financial sense of it? Can I afford to live in the house? Can I afford to pay my bills? How am I going to do that? And so that's the other really very critical piece, is that we're looking at the budget, we're looking at the expected expenses, and we're looking at real property, investable assets, spousal support, child support, how long it's going to last, how they're going to make sense of their new life. And many times there are accounts. I have a client right now. They own a big business in Northern California. They're each going to get about $10 million. There's still business. There's still accounts. Well, happy to be working with the wife, on this particular one. She's, wants us to work with the kids to set them up, to make sure that, they can have their new financial normal going forward. But I really think that, part of the key is getting people earlier. And that's what we're talking about here. Getting them when they're in elementary school or high school or in college. I'll talk to any group, about financial wellness. I spoke about a month ago to kids that are basically in foster care. They don't have that much money to rub together, but they get a check every month, and they'll go out and buy a pair of tennis shoes with that check. And I'll tell them, hey, I like nice tennis shoes too, but you know what? I got 3 or 4 pair of nice Converse that, I can get 3 or 4 pair of those before I can buy 1 pair of those, those new pump up, Air Jordans that you got. And I know, it's kind of a status symbol, but how about this? How about pay yourself first every month? I don't care if it's 5% of what you get. Pay yourself first every month and put it in the bank of you. And you'll be amazed over time, with time and interest and compound interest, you'll be amazed how empowering that is. So I believe that it's really critical to try and get, to people when they're younger. So when they're younger, then this idea of insurance being this, dirty word is not foreign to them. As I mentioned, I bought my first policy on myself when I was 26, way before I was married, because I had taken insurance in college, and, I had learned about some of the values of insurance. And back again, the sports analogy, how, the Baltimore Ravens, they won a world championship in large part because they had Ray Lewis in the middle. So, yep. It's cool to have, it's cool to have that guy that can run downfield real fast and catch a ball. But I tell you what, people say that, defense, is very important. In fact, a lot of people say defense wins championships. So let's put Ray Lewis in the middle with something that we can, predict, that we know that, that we have a high degree of probability. I guess nothing in this world is certain, but as an instrument, certainly whole life insurance is about as solid as you can get. I love business. I love real estate. I love the stock market. I love all those things. Cryptocurrency. I'm buying a little bit of cryptocurrency, but at the same time, I want to know, well, maybe I'll save that, but I'll just say this. I think the key is to getting the people earlier and talking to them. Another thing we need, I'd like to see us do as an industry that I think we fail on is don't use a bunch of financial jargon, use an analogy, talk to people, because that's one of the reasons they're so apprehensive, they think, oh, I'm not very smart about this stuff, or I don't get that stuff. Well, give them an analogy that makes sense.
I'd say on that one too, and I'm glad you brought that up, because I do think, we were talking about barriers, kind of the next question is, why do we have so many barriers to getting to people like you, right? Like, why are people just not banging down their door and they're saying, I deserve a financial advisor, right? I should absolutely do this. I do think some of it does come down. As a marketer, I'm going to, of course, say that. I think a lot of times what's portrayed out there is just a set of people who are already successful. They already have money, right? They're already at the point of saying, in their commercial, well, how should I plan the retirement? But somehow they already, have buku wealth, and it's options there. But how do you and I think one of the challenges so 2 questions there really is, How do we get more people? What can financial advisors, what can we all do to get more consumers to us, right? So we can talk to them, we can have these conversations. But I think the other thing is, and I think the biggest barrier, and there's so many barriers out there, we're doing a lot of work, of course, on within diversity, equity, and inclusivity, and barriers there, and different populations. But I think the barrier that I don't see enough time spent on is emotional barrier. And I think that that is cross-cutting, right? And I think if we just said, why don't we start tackling some of the root causes of emotional barriers, or why don't they pick up the phone and call Glenn or Paul, or call somebody, like you said, Glenn, call someone, talk to someone. Why don't they do that? And I think it is the early education lack of knowing, but I think there's emotional fear, right? I think that emotional fear, and to me, I'm coming from a public health background and looking at populations, as we have way increasing mental health problems, right? Diabetes, all these things together. And guess what else we're having, right? Lack of insurance and and more debt, and on and on and on. The healthy, wealthy component, right? At the end of it, the root cause is fear. So any thoughts there on, and I love that you're saying that, you're a financial wellness coach and all those things. How do we reframe it and get more people to not be scared of money, right? And how that's taught. How do we get to them? Any thoughts there?
Paul, I'll let you go.
Okay.
first.
Yeah, so I'm not quite sure they're afraid of it. I just think it's almost an apathy. I think that it is not, and especially in our business, specifically with insurance, it's not a fun thing to think about, right? They'd much rather, and I'll tell you why, because it's not for them. Inherently, human beings are inherently selfish. I know we don't think of ourselves that way. We all love our families and we do things, but do we really do everything we can for them? Do we really? I don't know. Yeah, we might buy them things. We might take them on trips, which we'll enjoy with them. But are we doing the things that are not going to even matter but until I pass away, right? Are we? And I would say that the answer is no, because it's much easier and if I have disposable income, if I have an extra $1,000 a month to spend, this is the average person, I believe they would much prefer to buy either Bitcoin, the new thing out there, the sneakers Glenn referenced. And again, I'm not trying to beat people up, but that's the reality of it. I remember one of my first meetings I went to, it was in Queens, New York. And I was a brand new agent at New York Life at the time. That's where I'm housed. And I met this family, union carpenter, registered nurse, never forget them. 5 kids, 1 on the way. And he was very proud to show me the motorcycle he just purchased for $4,800 in cash in his driveway. Yet he would not buy the $1 million term policy for $92. I remember the number. That's how this
It's burned in your brain.
Yeah. I didn't know what do you do? The priorities are either there or they're not. There are some people, guys, that we just can't get through to. But I believe if we do a good enough job of asking them the questions, what is your plan for? Right? Let them tell you. And the silence will be deafening. Truly deafening. And I also want to mention something, that one of the things that I always try to lead with in my meetings, and again, this will show you that this is not a product-driven discussion. One of the best questions I've ever asked people is, what keeps you up at night? Open-ended question. It's not scary for them to answer. It's not technical. What keeps you up at night? And I remember one lady about a year ago, she told me 2 things, Paul. She says, first, I'm petrified of an extended care event, and I'm scared of a repeat of the 2008, 2009 market correction. What that did for me, it took me to the direction of, I didn't force feed her a product, right? I solved her problems. These are the things that keep her up at night. So I think, those open-ended questions do a great job of allowing people to drive the bus. I feel like they sometimes close up when we try to tell them what to do. But if you ask the right questions, they'll be listening to themselves tell you what they need.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Love that. Glenn?
That's all, 2 ears and one mouth, right, Paul?
Yeah, absolutely.
We don't listen enough. Sometimes we want to regurgitate all that we've learned. It doesn't make a hill of beans what we think or what we know, about their planning. It only makes a difference what they want and what is important to them. And they say people fix a problem before they'll take advantage of an opportunity. And there are some in our business that, they want to cut, you got to cut them up. You got to make them feel the pain first before before they'll do anything. And I'm not really one of those, but I think people are, number one, money is a sensitive topic to a lot of people. They're afraid to open up. They don't want to open up. They don't want to, have an open, objective conversation. I think that's the major skill that any of us can have. And one of the ways I do that is I just want to, you know what? If I can't help you to a better outcome, which is the only reason I'm here, I can't be your coach. I don't want to be your coach. But hey, let me get to know you first. And I have a host of questions I ask people just to get them to talk and forget that we're even talking, to get them to the table. I'll ask people, I'm a great lover of music. What's your latest musical discovery and what's your latest musical rediscovery? Or I'll ask people always this question, which is a great one. Hey, Paul, when you're not helping people figure out their financial, future, their financial wellness, for them and their family, and, you're not taking care of your family, like, what do you do for you? Like, what's your thing? And I've heard so many answers that it's just amazing. Guy's 80-year-old lawyer the other day told me, oh, I'm a licensed hot air balloon instructor. I'm like, are you kidding? As soon as whatever they say, it's like, I've always wanted to ride in a hot air balloon. Okay, how high did you go? Or were you afraid? So I want to, first off, I want to get the people to know me first and like me and have an affinity, and vice versa. And you know what? I'm too old to work with anybody that I don't like. I don't want it that bad. Sit down with them too. I'm not sitting down to do a deal. Okay, I'm sitting down for one reason, to give you a better outcome. If I can do that, then let's have a conversation. If not, that's fine. If I'm not your guy, talk to somebody like me. But money sensitive, people are apprehensive about professionals in the industry. They think you're trying to sell them something or get over them on something. Many people are complacent about their plans and their goals, and many people think it's too complicated. So I think Paul said some great things, and one of which is listen and be observant to their body language, to their posture, to what they're telling you, and then work on what they ask you to fix for them, and then you can continue. Then you can you start a relationship and you can continue working with them.
One of our viewers said one of their questions is that they kind of frame it to say, hey, I'm not here to sell you anything. What is your quality of life? What does your ideal kind of life look like, right? And they kind of use that, frame it up that way as well. I think to, again, overcome some of the emotional resistance, because it is, and I don't know if that's a uniquely American thing or it's changing with our culture and et cetera, but I think that's something we need to figure out how we can. I think one of the biggest things I'll tell you from my consumer part is I came from, when I was in business school, I had that epiphany, and we were learning about Chapter 11 and bankruptcy and restructuring, right? And once I kind of got over that, money is just a tool, right? Money is a tool to be used for these other outcomes, and there's all sorts of different ways that you can structure it and do this, et cetera, and started thinking from a business aspect of like puzzle pieces, right? The emotion just went away, and it was like but you had to get kind of that maturity to think about money as a tool. Okay, what can it get me versus being, let's say, a blocking point or a barrier, et cetera, et cetera. And I think that those are those pieces, to your point, Glenn, we've got to teach early and often at all of those inflection points in life, and that we need to get that message out to say, listen, you deserve this advisor and you need to start when you need to start. So whether you are talking to children and they're like, hey, what are your parents doing? You know what I mean? Or a lot of times that comes into the college planning. That's a great entry point, right? Comes into the first jobs, the marriages, the babies, on and on and on. We need to get there often and touch bases to the point of you're making about annual reviews. So one of the last questions we did get in, I want to make sure we get our viewer and get their question. They're kind of, I'm going to a little bit tweak it, but they want to know what you guys are doing on LinkedIn in particular, right? And are you using LinkedIn to help spread this message, right? And get more people, either, and I'll ask, are you doing this from a consumer viewpoint or also kind of advisor to advisor, build your network? I'll just kind of leave it at that. Paul, what about you?
Primarily from a consumer viewpoint right now. The other, and also not, no, I shouldn't say that actually. Other advisors, like such as attorneys and accountants as well, those are important to me. So I am active on LinkedIn. I do try to post something at least once a week. I schedule, a social media block of time during the week in an effort to reach out and to different people and connect and offer myself if I could be of help to them, or comment on something that I could learn a lot too, by the way, from some of the posts that people do, and I certainly take that opportunity to do so. I don't know everything yet, so we're all learning, and I try to do that by meeting people, whether it be through social media or otherwise. But in this case with LinkedIn, I do pay attention to some of the issues that people are posting about, and they trigger responses in me. And sometimes sometimes the person who posted it can be of assistance to me, and I'll reach out to them, and ask them, hey, what are your thoughts on this? Or, and I think that it's just another medium. It's not much different than, going to an event or something and meeting someone in person. I mean, obviously it's a little bit different, but the fundamentals of it are the same, right? It's just interacting, introducing ourselves, complimenting somebody, perhaps asking questions about what they do. And LinkedIn's an important part of, I think, all of our businesses.
We call that digital dialogue. But
Okay.
you need to be interacting with LinkedIn, and you're writing to it, and you're talking. You should be able to hear those people in your head, right? It's like you should be almost thinking like you're right there. Glenn, what about you? I know you do quite a bit of video and whatnot as well. So you want to talk about your use of LinkedIn?
Yeah, LinkedIn and just social media in general, and IT. One of my other questions I ask people too, by the way, hey, do we have anything to fear from artificial intelligence? You'll be afraid, I have all kinds of questions. I'm full of them, but I'm like an original modern. I was marketing the first microcomputers that had 7-inch screens and 2 floppy drives on them. And when the 10 megabyte drive came out, I remember telling people, do you realize that you would never use that amount of storage in your whole life? Now there's 1,000 times that storage, and 1,000 times faster on this thing. So I've embraced technology for a long time that it can help you in your business. Now, when you talk about LinkedIn, I've done things like, you got a lot of people that tell you they've got the key to help you grow your business and get appointments with social media marketing on LinkedIn. And you have this series of templated emails, and you have an automated, bot that goes out and connects with people, and then they send them one message, and then the idea is to get them out of LinkedIn to get a meeting. And I tried that for about a year. I got to tell you what, I didn't have much success with that. And now I'm sure all of you get those emails, someone to reach out to you. Hey, I saw your profile. I thought then they want to, and basically they're posturing, themselves. The way I have used LinkedIn, for instance, I reached out to Paul this morning to connect, with Paul, and I'm hopefully he'll accept my invitation, and I even want it more now that I've heard him talk.
I have to look it over first. We'll see.
It's gonna vet you.
I know you're one of them Massachusetts guys, so you're apprehensive to begin with. But anyways, what I do on LinkedIn and social media and Instagram is I do videos. I want people to know me a little bit. I want them to say, you know what, I want to talk to that guy. And so I do something called Wisdom Wednesday. Every Wednesday I'm getting ready to post one as soon as we finish here. And it's just a little 1.5 minute thought. And that thought might say that I'm a coach for your financial well-being and I help you prepare for the biggest game plan of your life. But basically, I'm going to give some nugget, some life nugget, some wisdom nugget, and I'm finding that even though you may not get, all the likes you would like, people are seeing that, because I'll go somewhere, hey, have you heard Coach Crawford? If you haven't seen Coach Crawford, you need to look up Wisdom Wednesday. So they're seeing that stuff. And oh, by the way, the people, before they make an appointment with you, they're going to go out on social media, they're going to look you up. So what I try and do it is in a very non-threatening, you know, kind of way, you know, my post with that. Of course, I do have a lot of posts on my, you know, divorce, you know, part of my practice, and, you know, I promote NAIFA when I'm there and whatnot. But I believe absolutely that if you're not, if you're one of these people that thinks that, oh, you know, Google shared docs is the devil, or, on Facebook, they're going to be able to find me and come hunt me down and take my, that's always been I just think, you can't live in fear like that. So I would say be visible, but not overly visible on, on any of those mediums that you're comfortable with. I think, like Paul, absolutely, you have to have a presence on LinkedIn, and you just have to have a presence. Otherwise, you're missing the boat, because it's just like this crypto thing. I don't know, there's going to be some people do really well, and there's going to be some people get hurt. It's very volatile, but it's coming, just like the internet was coming, just like microcomputers are coming. It's coming.
So I just wrap up by saying thank you so much to both of you. Next, I'm going to ask you to get more involved, of course, on our consumer site, because you're exactly right. What social media, since we wrap up with that, what it allows you to do is for people who don't know you to get to know you and to be authentic, right? And be the authentic you. So they can make the consumer choice about, right? One, I should have a financial advisor. And then two, it allows them to lower the barriers to have them opt into you. And so that's one of the things we are really trying to do at NAIFA, is to get the consumer word out there, along with NAIFA and the Financial Security Alliance, and doing some of the work there. And so we're happy to be part of our Help Protect Our Families initiative. And I want to thank Glenn and Paul. Thank you so much for all the work you do for NAIFA and for the clients and the American people. And I look forward to doing more stuff with you soon, gentlemen. So thank you so much. Take care.
Thanks for having us.
Thank you so much, Suzanne. Thank you,
Bye,
Paul.
everybody.
Pleasure.
Thank you, guys.